News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. The excitement and anticipation of the last day of school is felt throughout schools in Cache Valley, as many schools are having their last days of instruction by the end of May. The schools are preparing to celebrate the class of 2022 graduation ceremonies. On tap for today, a couple hours ago, we had the Fast Forward Charter High School graduation at USU's Taggart Student Center Ballroom. Still tonight, Westside High School holding their commencement in the high school auditorium at 7 p.m. And then tomorrow, Logan High School at 4 p.m. at the USU Spectrum, and tomorrow evening, Intech Collegiate Academy at 6:30 at the USU Taggart Student Center. Also on Thursday, Preston High School's graduation will be held at the Preston High School football field. It just did not have an exact time on that particular graduation ceremony. You can get the complete list at cachevalleydaily.com. KVNU News Time is 4:06. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear skies tonight and overnight, low in the mid-40s. Partly cloudy, and the hottest day of the year coming up tomorrow, mid-80s for the high. And then a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Friday, high around 80, but more showers, cooler weather on the way, just in time for the Memorial Day weekend. It's been 74 at 72 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Northern Steel Building. Work with their Cache Valley team to build a stronger, more durable, long-lasting structure for your needs. Visit northernsteelbuilding.com or call 435-677-7300.
Make laundry a snap with the large load washers and dryers at Mount Logan Laundry. Rather than 8 to 10 loads at home, get the job done in 1 or 2 with their 55 or 80-pound washers and 80-pound dryers that are perfect for sleeping bags, comforters, and other big items. Mount Logan Laundry has free Wi-Fi and drop-off service, plus they're open until midnight. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town. Find them at 5th East and 9th North in Logan or in Brigham City on the corner of 1st East and 7th South.
KVNU News Time is 4:07. The Utah Department of Public Safety on Tuesday released the identity of a motorcyclist killed Saturday in Weber County. According to a DPS statement, 18-year-old Corbin Fike of Far West died at the scene when he reportedly ran a red light and collided with a passenger vehicle. A Subaru hatchback was traveling on 12th Street in Ogden just after 11 a.m. when it entered the 1900 West intersection in Marriott-Slaterville. Authorities said the light was green for east-west traffic. Fike was traveling north and drove through the red light at the same time, officials reported. His motorcycle crashed against the side of the Subaru and he was ejected. He sustained fatal injuries from the crash. The occupants in the Subaru were not injured. Police said they are searching for a missing and endangered 13-year-old girl from West Jordan. They say Isabella Kidman is 5'7", 190 pounds, with blue eyes and blonde hair. She was last seen in a black hoodie with white lettering on the front and the character Rick from Rick and Morty on the back. Officials said she was also wearing white sweatpants and checkered Vans shoes. They said Isabella contacted an unknown adult male through social media and met with him near 7600 South Redwood Road on Saturday. She reportedly left with him at about 10:30 p.m. and has not been seen or heard from since. The identity of the man last seen with Isabella is not known. Surveillance videos from a nearby middle school indicated to officers that the male subject is possibly Hispanic with dark hair. In the footage, the two are seen leaving together in a light blue colored crossover SUV. Officer Samuel Winkler with the West Jordan Police Department said although Isabella willingly left with the male subject, it causes police great concern for Isabella's safety that an unknown adult male met with a juvenile late at night and took her away from her family. Isabella's parents desperately want Isabella to come home. Anyone with information regarding her whereabouts has been asked to contact West Jordan Police. KBNU News Time is 4:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Where news and talk comes first. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Jessup Insurance has a local office with professionals that understand all the Medicare plans available to Utah and Idaho citizens. They simply make Medicare understandable at no additional cost. Call Jessup Insurance 435-213-3200 or Google Jessup Insurance.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru for Morris Columbus Travel and Apple Vacations. Run away to the sunny beaches of Hawaii, Mexico, and the Caribbean with double discounts, including a guaranteed air and hotel discount. Then we drop your price up to another $150 per booking. For the best travel deals on the planet, call Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away. Morris Columbus.
When I went looking for a place to rent, I wore a mask, but they could still see I'm black. The landlord told me
nothing available.
When I went looking for an apartment, I wore a mask. Obviously, I'm Latino. They said
the place has been rented.
My wife and I were house hunting.
We wore masks, but we're Asian American. And the real estate agent said,
you won't be happy here.
If you suspect housing discrimination because of your race, file a complaint with HUD. Go to HUD.gov/fair housing. Fair housing. The law is on your side. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Wednesday, May 25th. And let me start things off here by saying this is not a live show. I'm actually out of the studio today, so we'll be revisiting some of our biggest hits over the last several weeks, including time we had to talk with Todd Beutler, Executive Director of the Cache Valley Transit District, an interview we were able to do with Congressman Blake Moore on his recent legislation dealing with a very important thing here in the United States that surprisingly has been kicked down the road for a couple of decades. We'll also check in with the latest when it comes to our water outlook and conservation efforts with a new idea from several cities in the surrounding areas of the county, surrounding Logan City, on what residents can do to get creative about conserving water, make it less of a dirge and a have-to kind of thing, but some challenges and even competitions some cities are running around the valley to get people thinking creatively and trying different things in their own yards. Very cool stuff, and something that, as Nathan Doggs told us on yesterday's show, can make actually a huge difference, even if it seems like a little thing in water conservation. So, kicking things off here today, though, this is available at CashValleyDaily.com by our good friend Charlie, who will again be with us tomorrow for an entertainment hour. In a news story at CashValleyDaily.com, Charlie writes of some recent census data that kind of, well, I don't know, it depends on your perspective, I guess, whether this is going to run against what you would assume to be the case or something that you would absolutely predict. But in the end, here in Utah, we stand out from the rest of the country in a key way when it comes to this digital age we live in. And that key way is, again, depending on your perspective, either a good thing or a bad thing. But the census says that 40% of Utahns still aren't connected. In this age we live in, you know, I say it here on the show all the time. We have some of the most powerful computers that have ever existed in our pockets, the size of, a large credit card, and they can do amazing things. But one of the things they can do that I think is the most useful and can also be the worst if used incorrectly is constant connectivity. And I'm not just talking social media, but I'm talking connection to the news. The tragedy in Texas yesterday with 18 children gunned down by a gunman in a mass shooting. That was something I followed, via news updates on my phone ahead of the show yesterday. And that type of thing can be very useful. Also, the recent years, there was some flooding here in Cache Valley. I was able to get updates from my own city via social media and other apps on my phone. So this is a useful thing, although most of us, let's admit it, probably use constant connectivity for entertainment. Checking for the latest music or movie news or things like that. Or if you're a political junkie like me, just kind of skimming through the dregs of Twitter to see what the most intense, that's the word I'll use, elected officials have to say to get attention that day. Either way, it's not innately harmful to be constantly connected. It can be. We've seen reports of the negative effects Instagram can have on young people's body images and mental health, especially young girls, just because Instagram is a photo-driven platform. It can become really competitive. Facebook, we saw Facebook's role in misinformation. And, remember back in the day when we used to laugh at these? But those emails you would get from one of your relatives, and it was forward, colon, and then some wild conspiracy theory, and it would always be Aunt Mabel or Uncle Tom saying, "Have you seen this?" Yeah, it's not true. But the forwards, it had been forwarded 30, 40 times before Aunt Mabel or Uncle Tom got it to send it to you. That's Facebook now. Basically, Facebook is the sharing and asking for reaction from your group of friends to stories that are literally made up and are posted at websites like patriotnews1.net. And people share it. It's our fault, not Facebook's, I maintain, but that's what a lot of Facebook is right now, on top of cat pictures and honestly, some really fun groups. That's one of my disappointments with Facebook is I love Facebook groups. I think they can be really useful. I think they can be great for mental health. I think they can be great for keeping people connected with communities of like interests. Backpacker groups, for example. I've learned a lot of trails that I'd never even heard of that I've been able to go out and explore. I love that side of social media, of Facebook. I hate everything else about it. Twitter, again, great news aggregating service. I don't know why anyone would spend their time doing what a lot of people do, which is arguing with each other on Twitter. Instagram, I get, but again, I'm wary about sharing photos and details about my personal life on social media. So I don't post a lot. I do lurk a lot on Instagram. My point is, I don't think any of these things is innately evil, as many people talk about them these days. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that the census data in this article reports that 40% of Utahns are not even connected to any of this. But it is interesting because it's an outlier. And it's an outlier that might actually be indicative of some issues that fall into the public policy realm. The census has an interactive map showing this near 40% of Utah's population not connected to the digital age. And again, first reaction, you might say, well, good for them, staying out of the muck, right? What if, though, they're not connected because they lack access to fixed broadband at their homes, or they lack access, believe it or not, this is a common thing still in Utah and parts of Idaho and huge parts, the majority of Wyoming, where cell phone access, data access via cell phone is not an option. You could barely make a phone call in parts of Rich County. You're not getting high-speed data. You're not watching videos. You're not watching Netflix. You're not. And so this is 40% of the state that maybe not by choice is cut off from the rest of the world, the rest of the state, and things are moving online at a much more rapid pace. You can see how quickly entire communities could be left behind. And again, not that that number itself should be a problem, 40% of the state not connected to this always connected digital world we live in, if it's by choice. If it's because they've literally just been left behind, that's a problem. And the Census Bureau is leaning that way in their analysis of the data. This is something that Governor Cox has actually spoken to. He, of course, is of the mindset that this isn't a choice by the majority of this 40%. In fact, back in March, as Charlie points out in the story, he held a press conference in Manaway, right here in northern Utah, to announce that this broadband access grant that will go towards linking rural households in Box Elder County to high-speed broadband through fiber optic cable. Even just our neighbors to the west in Box Elder, there are big chunks of Box Elder County that can't get broadband at their home and don't have a reliable, at least, cell phone data option. So the census report, by the way, says that nearly $1.2 million, Utahns, not dollars, Utahns, are not connected to high-speed internet service for various reasons. And as Governor Cox has pointed out, that means that these people are limited in jobs they can apply for, even finding jobs they can apply for. And Governor Cox has said if this more than 1 million households in Utah, if a good chunk of them are not connected even via personal desktop computer at a local library or something like that, they are cut off and left behind entirely. What do you do, though? Well, obviously, the infrastructure bill is going to help. The state's going to have to spend some money to understand broadband. And the state is going to actually also have to build a broadband map. Right now, the state's broadband map, where broadband is available, is self-reported by internet service providers. Probably the worst way to get an idea of where broadband is available and where it isn't. Thankfully, the legislature is finally waking up to that and has been doing their own little survey, which you can be a part of. I've linked to that on our Facebook page if you'd like to contribute to the Utah Broadband Survey. This is for everyone, even here in Cache Valley, where we have pretty decent access to multiple choices for broadband internet and great cell phone data service, depending on who you're with, I guess. You can still be a part of this because they also want to test speeds. They want to see how fast broadband is in certain areas. So throughout your day, the governor is asking you to click this link and just run a quick speed test, whether it's on your cell phone or a desktop or laptop computer connected to some sort of wireless broadband or wired broadband. Help the state collect this data so they know, because money is going to be spent, where the money can be spent the smartest to get some of these left-behind communities not left behind. Check it out. Great story by Charlie on the census data showing 40% of Utahns lack reliable high-speed internet services, cell phone or broadband. That link on our Facebook page or on the front page of CacheValleyDaily.com, and we'll be back right after this.
Welcome to everyone's metal store, Palmer's Metal Mart. Now, those of you that have been around for a while, don't let the name fool you. We are the same Metal Mart you've come to know for almost 30 years. We've just added a bit to our name, Palmer's, in honor of our late founder. And it is added to the Metal Mart name as a promise to continue the legacy of everyone's metal store. Palmer's Metal Mart was founded to make sure everyone had access to great steel products at competitive prices. So for almost 30 years, Palmer's Metal Mart has been the place to go for steel, metal roofing, rebar, aluminum, and so much more. For orders big and small, Palmer's Metal Mart is your place. So come on in and let's get your metal project started. If it's metal, pretty good chance you can find it here. Amazing selection, excellent service. That's everyone's metal store, Palmer's Metal Mart. In Lehigh and Logan, visit us online at palmersmetalmart.com. Call today in Lehigh, 801-768-3332. And in Logan, 435-363-9001. See you soon at everyone's metal store, Palmer's Metal Mart.
With so much financial uncertainty, are you wondering if your retirement savings will last? The market's ups and downs can keep you guessing, especially if you're approaching retirement or considering it. If you have more questions than answers about what's next, your Edward Jones financial advisor can help you prepare for your journey. After all, retirement isn't the end of the trek, it's a new beginning. Visit edwardjones.com or stop by your local Edward Jones office. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Mama, what does the chicken say? Dog. Cat. Giraffe.
Giraffe, really? Giraffe.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right.
Visit NHTSA.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Jumping right back in here with another guest. A couple of weeks ago, maybe it was just last week, my memory's fried, we spoke about some interesting developments throughout Utah. Also at the federal level, you have a lot of moving wheels when it comes to public transit, road funding, and more through the federal infrastructure program or fund bill, which that money has now made its way technically to the states. States will then decide in various ways that the bill allows them to how to divvy this up and where to put it. And the Utah legislature during the session really drove home their interest in a renewed focus on public transit, considering growth projections, but also the growth that is already manifested throughout many parts of Utah. And, of course, that means that here in Cache Valley, through our own Cache Valley Transit District, there might be some changes coming and a future that looks a little different than maybe what we were talking about 5-10 years ago. So we reached out to our friends at CVTD, and joining us right now, Todd Beutler of the Cache Valley Transit District. Todd, always great to have you here on the show and talk about this. And I know, a conversation like this is, well, I don't want to say theoretical, but there are no I's dotted or T's crossed yet when it comes to what the state might be looking at or where the money might be going. But I know at CVTD, y'all never rest, right? You're always looking at new technology and what the future might hold. And you agreed to come on and talk about that today.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out, Jason. And it's always great to talk about public transit, what we can do. And again, we're just one mechanisms, roads, micro-mobility, we see active transportation. All of these things are important, but always love to talk about public transit. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, and it's a very fluid environment, right? This is it's difficult to plan when you're not really sure exactly how much money might be available for future developments, but you do have an opportunity to keep an eye on ridership growth and things like that. And then, of course, you have the state legislature up above saying, here are our priorities. So if you can, give us kind of a lay of the land if you had to look ahead 5 years.
Yeah, so it's an interesting time for sure, and we're probably no different than most industries. COVID actually has been somewhat of a blessing in disguise. I mean, obviously, we're all tired of that, but it really allowed us to kind of rethink and look at what are those priorities that you're talking about. And I think one of the biggest challenges we always face in Cache Valley is just convenience. Like most of the folks, we've just seen traffic on Main Street and on the side roads just increase tremendously as we continue to deal with this growth. Sure. But we still don't have, a major commute problem. I mean, when you look at it, as far as it's really hard for public transit to be as convenient as jumping in your car. But really, that's what it comes down to. How do we make it more convenient? And I think you've hit on some key things, technology. How can we put more information in a user of public transit's hands? How can we increase frequency? What can we do? And technology is a big part of that. One of the things that we're working on right now as we speak is putting technology on all of our fixed route buses where we're going to have automatic passenger counters. And so I was like, okay, well, we've counted the passengers for all this time. The drivers do that. What's the big deal about automatic passenger counters? Well, the drivers would do a count at the end of each run when they get back to the transit center, and that would give us a total. But then we would have to go through this laborious process to do sampling to really kind of see where that ridership was coming from. Where now, with these automatic passenger counters, we're going to be able to see time of day, day of week, every given day where passengers are getting on and off. And from a planning perspective, that's really going to give us a tool that we've never had in really looking at the next several years of how do we plan for growth. Another thing that we're doing is voice enunciators, where every stop will be announced both inside and outside the bus. And so for folks that are visually impaired, that's a tremendous tool. But as I look at it, as we are more ingrained in our phone and technology and working while we're riding and all of these things, even for folks that aren't visually impaired, this becomes a valuable tool, and it makes it more convenient. And then one of the coolest tools is we'll finally have our own app, where in the past we've always relied on third parties, so we don't have a lot of control on that technology. But now we'll have an app that's ours to control. It'll be able to show the buses in real time, predict when the next bus is coming, refreshed about every 15 seconds. And so that really gives another tool to the rider to where, if it's freezing cold and snowing outside, they don't have to go stand at the bus stop, a few minutes early, and then the bus is behind because of the weather. And so they're out there for 15 minutes in the elements. They can look at their app and say, okay, where's it really at? How long before it comes, and spend less time out in the elements. So these are really exciting tools. And the great thing about this app technology too is we put this into what they call a GTFS feed, and actually it now feeds into Google. And so it's going to be something as simple as you talk to your phone and say, hey, Google, I need to go to the university on public transit, and it will plan out the trip. It will tell you where to walk to the bus stop, tell you which bus to get on, and so it's going to be a really powerful tool to make, again, it more convenient for the riders.
That's fascinating to think about. The idea that because we're all used to doing things that way in general, talking to our phones, and but to have CVTD incorporated into that. What does this mean on the back end for your planning at CVTD? As technology changes and as you look at that technology and say, what's going to make it more convenient for people to ride or to ride longer and further even, are we in a position where we're very adaptable?
Yeah, I think, again, that's one of the things that we learned from COVID is we've got to be more flexible than we have been in the past. And it's hard, right? So we receive a lot of federal funding. We're bringing those federal tax dollars back into the Valley and putting them to work. But that comes with a lot of strings, and so there's a lot of regulation. And in the past, it's made us very regimented, and it's hard for us to be adaptable. And so what we're trying to do is figure out ways to be more flexible but still operate within the federal requirements. And I will say the federal government's trying to do a better job as well of making it more flexible. But we're taking completely different approaches to what we've done in the past of how we institute those federal dollars and leverage them in the most effective way, but then also say, okay, what are projects that we need to have a little bit more flexibility than we have in the past, so we're not going to tie federal dollars to those. We're going to do those more with local funding so that if something changes. But to your point on the technology, it's such an important tool, but it's also such an ever-changing tool, and so it's really hard, right? How do you time that? And a perfect example is in this stuff that we're deploying right now, we just took delivery of some new buses, and we timed this on purpose that we wouldn't deploy this until we took delivery of these buses, so that we could get them all. We have to retrofit some and then take the delivery of these. Well, the new buses, same hardware company, but they have upfitted, I guess, their module, their controller, and so it's wired a little differently. And so the old buses, the voice enunciators are working great. The new buses, they wired it differently. The voice enunciators aren't working, and they're having to reprogram or write code, if you will, of how they're going to deal with that. But they need to do that because other properties are going to be dealing with this new controller. And so technology is an exciting thing, and it's really going to help us, but it's also such a changing thing that it's, as you said, it's so fluid, creates challenges sometimes.
A lot of challenges, but, move ahead we must, right? Public transit is a part of Cache Valley's future, to say the least, and as you see ridership grow, as Todd has told us, as we see technology change, it becomes both more complex, but also something that, luckily, one thing we're doing right, I think, here in the state of Utah at large is getting ahead of it, though there is a debate on whether we're getting ahead of it fast enough, especially along the Wasatch Front. Todd Beutler, Executive Director of the CVTD Cache Valley Transit District. Always a pleasure to have you here on your show. Thank you for joining us, and we'll check in again soon. For listeners, if you'd like to know more, cvtd.org, of course. You can download the apps we've discussed here, the Route Maker and more, and watch for more announcements. Todd, I won't spoil anything, but watch for more announcements coming from the Cache Valley Transit District over the next year, and we'll check in again soon. Thanks again to you, Todd, for your time, to our listeners for their time tuning in, and please stay tuned. More of For the People right after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:35. The news is brought to you by the Duck Hunter. Several Afghan refugees have been relocated to Cache Valley, according to Cache Refugee and Immigrant Connection, or CRIC, Executive Director Danny Buse. He was a guest on KVNU's For the People program on Tuesday.
I've told this to people before. When we all saw the images of packed cargo planes full of Afghan people evacuating Afghanistan. I never, for some reason, it never crossed my mind that I would be helping those people, start over a new life in the United States and here in Cache Valley. But that's exactly what we're doing at CRIC. We're the only nonprofit in the state of Utah that is actually doing the resettlement work.
Buse said they are honored to be participating in this program. He said the community has really come together as well to help support these refugees. CRIC has a couple of events coming up soon. One is on June 3rd, a barbecue, brews, and live music event at the Annex on Federal Avenue in downtown Logan. And their big annual event will be June 18th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Willow Park. It's their World Refugee Day. You can support CRIC and enjoy catering from Tandoori Oven and actually meet some of the refugee families who have settled in the valley.
With the pandemic, we haven't really been able to hold a real World Refugee Day event for a couple of years. And so we're looking forward to being able to celebrate our refugee and immigrant community here in Cache Valley. And so, it's an event that's going to be free for everybody. We will have cultural presentations from many of our clients.
For more information, visit cacherefugees.org. Governor Spencer Cox has ordered the lowering of all flags on all state facilities in accordance with President Biden's proclamation honoring the victims who lost their lives in Uvalde, Texas. Flags were authorized to be lowered to half staff immediately and return to full staff at sunset on Saturday. Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson expressed their condolences to those affected by the shooting in a joint statement that said they are absolutely devastated to learn about the tragedy in Uvalde, Texas. It's hard to imagine a more heinous crime, and they pray for the students, educators, families, law enforcement officers, and everyone impacted by this senseless act of violence. The statement went on to say, even as we mourn for the victims, we urge parents and students to download the Safe Utah app and to say something if you see warning signs. End of statement. When newly passed liquor laws go into effect next week, some popular hard seltzer flavors may start disappearing from grocery and convenience store shelves. At its monthly meeting, the Utah Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission was briefed on upcoming plans for hard seltzers. The agency will not require the product to be immediately pulled from store shelves and sent to state-run liquor stores. The DABC is asking retailers not to order any new products that are no longer compliant, but giving them until this fall to phase out what they have. The hard seltzer manufacturers are providing ingredient lists to the DABC so they can determine what flavors need to be sold in a state-run liquor store and what can stay on grocery and convenience store shelves. KVNU News Time is 4:38.
Did you just build a home or remodel your current home? Well, if so, John at the Duct Hunter says you should have your heating ducts cleaned as soon as possible and change out to a high-quality furnace filter. The dust from construction, sawdust, drywall, and more is sitting in your duct work. Your furnace filter's probably clogged. You'd be surprised what John has found in air ducts, toys, construction debris, and rodents. Let the Duct Hunter clean the ducts today. Call for a free consultation. The Duct Hunter, 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
KVNU weather tonight, mostly clear, mid-40s overnight, partly cloudy, hot tomorrow, mid-80s before showers start moving in on the forecast beginning on Friday. It's been to 74 at 71 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind. Visit roofrescueusa.com. For the latest news, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is Branch Office Administrator Brittany Chambers bringing you the daily financial market report on behalf of financial advisor Darryl Arnell and Edward Jones. U.S. stocks finished higher following the release of the Fed meeting minutes. which confirmed market expectations for an aggressive rate hiking cycle, at least early on. Some investor caution persists amid signs of a deceleration in economic growth as central banks tighten their policy to tame inflation. Yet, the recent decline in yields has helped ease some of the valuation pressures. Consumer discretionary and energy stocks outperformed while the defensive sectors lagged as equities found support. Oil prices were slightly higher at about $110, and the 10-year Treasury yield was lower at 2.74%. U.S. equities closed higher today. The Dow closed up 193 points, or 0.6%, at 32,122. The Nasdaq closed up 170 points, or 1.51%, at 11,435. The S&P closed up 38 points, or 0.95%, at 3,979. In stocks of local interest, Home Depot is up $5.65 to $293.57. Lowe's is up $3.93 to $188.55. Nucor is up $4.44 to $128.66. Pepsi is up $1.15 to $168.97. Thermo Fisher is down $14.55 to $534.27. Walmart is down 76 cents to $123.37. Zions is up $1.42 to $54.96. And Northrop Grumman is down $3.48 to $467.62. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at offices in Providence, Logan, and Smithfield. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
This is Ty over at Chimney Fireplace. A lot of people hear our name and think we just sweep chimneys. While that is definitely our heritage, we specialize in providing the very best fireplaces and stoves to new and existing homes. We invite you to come see why Lopi Stoves lead the industry in performance and quality. With Fireplace Extraordinaire Fireplaces, we can bring any of your designs to life. From cozy and traditional to sleek and modern, come experience the warmth at Chimney Fireplace in Logan and Brigham City, or online at chimchimney.com.
If someone from your family is graduating from school, give the gift of time with a watch from S.E. Needham Jewelers. A watch is a lasting gift. We have a large selection of quality watches which are all marked at our integrity price guarantee. We also engrave name, date, or a special message at no extra charge. Every watch comes with our free lifetime battery replacement and is backed with our professional watch technicians. On every wrist, a Needham watch. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. We've talked about this before here on the show in general, talking about crowded national parks, crowded state parks, crowded trails here in Cache Valley. If you've been to Zion National Canyon recently in the on season, as they call it, it's basically just a line of people up and back on a lot of those trails. So many people, locals, go in the off season, which is a smart move. But there is a larger part of this, a larger set of questions. And Utah State University, teaming up with the state of Utah after some legislative funding was made available for this, to take a look at some of the challenges this brings for the state of Utah. Of course, tourism is huge for Moab, the city, also Carbon County at large, also a big part of Washington County's economy, big part of Cache County's economy, even Salt Lake City and Provo areas see a lot of economic activity due to tourism. Salt Lake City, due to being the international airport hub, of course, a lot of people come in maybe for a vacation that's going to take them north through Cache Valley or south through Zion National Canyon or St. George or what have you over to Moab. They usually come in and maybe spend an afternoon, maybe even an evening in Salt Lake at a restaurant, at a hotel. So it's not it's not isolated to these areas that benefit most directly, like Moab or Cache Valley or other destinations in the state. It's a part of the state's economy. So obviously sustainability, both environmental sustainability, but also sustainability of that tourism activity in general. Let's put this another way. Air quality issues here in Utah have a negative impact on tourism. In fact, the ski industry here in Utah has said that they've noticed a downturn in activity on the ski slopes and all the indirect economic activity that comes from that, because people come here to ski, they stay in a hotel, they spend money at restaurants, gas stations, all of that. They said that there is a noticeable decrease in the winters that we've had the worst air quality. Word gets out and people don't want to come here because of that. Water issues could also impact that. If it becomes water issues are an infrastructure problem in a lot of ways for many of these cities. During the big tourism months, of course, there's wear and tear on roads. There's use of water systems, sewer systems, the electrical grid. And as population here in Utah grows alongside the growth of tourism, well, the state basically said, we're going to put some money towards researching this to see if this is sustainable. And again, two different sustainables we're talking about there. If the environmental impact is something that could, potentially permanently harm the state, but also if the infrastructure would hold up, if Utah can support this, and as population grows at the same time that tourism itself is growing, can we get ahead of this to make sure that there isn't a day when people just decide they don't want to come here because the infrastructure can't support it, and that leads to a negative experience because the air quality is so bad, that leads to a negative experience because our lakes have all dried up from overuse of water. These are the types of things the state obviously wants to avoid because, again, this is about 30% of the state's economy every year. So the money was appropriated by the legislature a couple of years in a row, actually, through a couple of different mechanisms. The Outdoor Adventure Committee is the dumbest name. But also there is an official at Utah State University, an official research wing dedicated to this called the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism. And this is basically all they do is take a look at tourism, take a look at the impacts of tourism on the state, but also take a look at the impacts of tourism on the economy, a positive, and then the general changes, the environment, the climate. There have even been studies through Utah State University on carbon emissions generated by tourism, which of course then contribute to our air quality problems, which can become a snake eating itself if the air quality gets worse and stays bad for longer periods of time, which we've seen, multiple years in a row now. Then this can impact tourism. People don't want to come here if the air's gunky to breathe. They'll go somewhere else. That we'd like to avoid, but at the same time, kind of a balancing act here, right? So Utah State University recently published a lot of public access geared material regarding their research from climate change and outdoor recreation in the overall western United States, but specifically here in Utah, ways that we are adapting, ways we can adapt, and all of this, again, happening under the umbrella of outdoor recreation with a look at this, not just looking at solutions to climate change to impact our contribution to climate change here in Utah. That's part of it, but also how we can adapt and reduce our carbon footprint or our pollution dumped into the air each day, at the same time not discourage outdoor recreation and tourism. So it's fascinating to see this research happen right here in our own backyard, and there's a whole library that's been published just recently by the USU Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism. But I wanted to bring listeners just a few little snippets of that I thought were most interesting. One is a video that was published with this whole library, but that was made public. It's Dr. Wayne Friedman from USU Moab, and he's been working a couple of years in a row now on a study to understand carbon emissions generated by tourism in Moab, Utah. And of course that, then spreads out to surrounding areas like Arches. How does this impact air quality, the environment at large? Here's just a bit of what Dr. Friedman had to say about where their research is going and been.
I have a colleague, Jordan Smith, who had a former graduate student. Then they did a kind of a nationwide look at the impact of tourism travel and national parks in particular on carbon. It hasn't been isolated to a place like Arches Park here, which is part of where we're going to take it next. So the way we're able to do that is that we've bought through USU Moab some data that you get from mobile devices. From that data source, you can determine where people live, how far they travel to get to their destination, where they're going to go next. So that's a very efficient way to calculate not only what the existing conditions are, but to monitor how they change over time. One of the things that we really lack right now is just a good description of what's going on. And we haven't had the technology and tools to be able to think at these large scales nearly as well as we've been able to develop over the last 2 or 3 years. And we tend to think about tourism impacts at a very local scale or economically at a state scale. But when we start thinking about travel patterns, the collective impact of that is probably going to be a little bit sobering. And I hope that if it is, that it stimulates a dialogue about how we can improve that.
That was, again, a video released with this full library recapping and making public some of the research that's been happening through this institute at USU. That was Dr. Wayne Friedman, and he mentioned there, he's from USU Moab, he mentioned Dr. Jordan Smith, who is actually the director at Utah State University of the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism. So he's the guy. He's right here on campus in Cache Valley, and he recently spoke about the same thing. Dr. Friedman mentioned there that they can use new tools, new technology, new data to actually build a map of where people are coming from, where people are going to after they visit Utah, where they're staying while they're here. That sounds kind of creepy, right? But it's all anonymized data, and most of it, Dr. Jordan Smith said recently in a presentation at Utah State University, most of it is coming from social media. And he talked about what that means for how they can understand both the climate footprint of tourism, but also what we can maybe do to offset the environmental negatives, the infrastructure negatives, the basically the taxing of the system that sometimes happens for at least a few months of the year in cities like Moab and here in Cache County. Again, all of this being done to try and decide how we can best adapt to make sure tourism doesn't start to decline as a part of our economy here in Utah. Here's what Dr. Smith had to say at Utah State University just last week about how they're collecting this tourism data mentioned by Dr. Friedman in that first video.
So we have a variety of different tools that we use to measure and monitor visitor use. Right now we're starting to turn towards large publicly available data sets like social media. So every time you go out and take a selfie or you take a picture of a beautiful landscape around the state, geographic coordinates of where that photo was taken are uploaded with the photo itself. And when we aggregate that data, we can actually capture entire visitation for an entire year. And what we're doing is trying to identify where are those areas that currently aren't used, and how can we actually start to disperse use away from those high concentration areas that are starting to experience high levels of crowding.
The full presentation is, of course, available on the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism's website. That is extension.usu/IORT, Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism, IORT, extension.usu.edu/IORT. I've linked to it on our own Facebook page. During that presentation last week at Utah State University, recapping the school year in research, Dr. Smith explained how they looked at visitation trends from all over the state, Mill Creek Canyons, Little Cottonwood, Big Cottonwood here in Cache Valley, down in Moab, over in the eastern corner of the state in Bears Ears National Monument Visitor Center. And the research, he said, focused on collaboration to identify investment opportunities for outdoor recreation infrastructure through the state of Utah. So again, that's why the state decided to pony up some funds for this, knowing that we need to get ahead of this. Tourism is growing, our population is growing. We need to take seriously our environmental impact of our own lifestyles, but also the impact of tourism. Because again, snake eating itself, if things get bad enough, our air quality, our lack of water, our dried up lakes and things like that, people stop wanting to come here. That's 30% of our economy that could evaporate in a year. And other states have seen that happen when they didn't take this stuff seriously. So very proactive, forward-thinking attempt by the state here to fund this research at Utah State University through the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism and understand who's coming here, where they're going afterwards, why they're coming here, where they're staying while they're here, their environmental impact, their impact on our infrastructure and more, and then kind of report back to the state and say, here's a full picture, and here are some recommendations on where we think, state money could go to get ahead of some of these challenges, again, with the goal of it not only protecting our environment and our infrastructure for us, the natives, but also not ever reaching a point where we're seeing tourism decline steadily here in Utah, as has happened to several other states, including a couple of western states. Montana's struggling with this right now, infrastructure-wise. So it's interesting stuff. Again, a full library of research was made public last week by the USU Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism. I've linked to it on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
9 million albums, 16 million singles, worldwide, sold-out concerts across the globe. Cherry Peak Resort welcomes Daughtry. Daughtry, an incredible night under the stars with Daughtry and the Dearly Beloved Tour with special guest Blackstone Cherry. You heard it right. Multi-platinum artist, Daughtry, on stage at Cherry Peak Resort August 2nd. Tickets on sale at skicpr.com. Get your tickets today. Daughtry. This show will sell out. You love the music. Now hear them live. Food, fun, and incredible music August 2nd. One night only. Daughtry. Tickets on sale at skicpr.com. See you there.
The temperature's warmer, and here at Alpine Home Medical, we couldn't be happier to serve you as we mark our 25th anniversary this spring. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent, and I want to thank you for being the best customers over the last 25 years. We couldn't have done it without you. If you've shopped with us before, thank you. If not, we want to make sure that we're your one-stop shop for all your home medical needs. You'll find the most selection and best quality products. Check out our power scooters for better freedom to help you move around and get you where you need to go easier. With compression socks, CPAP supplies, and incontinence products, our resupply team ships discreetly to your home, where you need it, when you need it. You get it all in unmarked boxes to protect your privacy. Alpine Home Medical has 10 locations across Utah and southern Idaho to serve you. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Here's Chad, the lawn doctor, with a tip for your lawn.
Just a couple tips for this summer for a healthier lawn. Raise your lawnmower blade a notch or two. Longer grass helps conserve water and fight against stress. Double check your sprinkler coverage and watering times. Then call the lawn doctor to put down a grub preventative and to try our popular new 2-service soil enrichment program.
Fertilizer, weed, and pest control. Call the lawn doctor at 753-LAWN or go to LawndoctorCashValley.com.
Over the last year, COVID-19 vaccines helped us get back to a life that feels almost normal. But the virus is still out there, and there's still something you can do to protect yourself and those you care about most. When it comes to your health and the well-being of your family and friends, don't let your guard down. Get vaccinated and boosted for COVID-19 to keep your protection going strong. Find a location at coronavirus.utah.gov.
That's hour one of today's show in the can, but stay tuned. You're going to want to hear this. Coming up in hour two of today's show, why your backyard barbecue is not nearly as epic as it could be for just an additional $10 in expense. It's the coolest thing I've ever read. A suggestion from a startup company right here on Utah on a small device you can get almost anywhere to make your backyard barbecue so memorable people will be talking about it for generations. Okay, maybe an exaggeration, but just a cool story about how one Utahn got creative with something he bought at a local supermarket, and it caught on. Now his whole neighborhood is using them, and he started a company about the whole thing. That's coming up in hour 2 of today's show, right after this here on KVN.